Space is nothingness. It is the in-between, the negative. Space is the area that is unoccupied, but has the potential to be occupied. It is a silence between my words, the gap, the breath, the pause. We familiarise ourselves with the places we inhabit. As Gaston Bachelard puts it in Poetics of Space, the house's entire being would open up, faithful to our own being. We would push the door which creaks with the same gesture. We would find our way in the dark to that distant attic. We would not stumble on that rather high step. But familiarity is safe. It makes us complacent. We don't think enough about staircases. In that one sentence in Species of Spaces, Georges Perec perfectly captures the need of a conscious effort to see again. Passages, in-between spaces, transitional spaces, captured as fragmented memories. Negative space becomes object, space becomes structure. Straight lines, diagonal, perfectly aligned, blocks, towering above. Everything is perfectly aligned. Lines meet lines, meet lines. A tree appears, framed exactly within the block. Green followed by blue, followed by pink, red, green. A gridded habitat. Repetition. Lines. Structures dictate space. They dictate the way in which one moves through space. Physical and social structures exist within different realms, yet they both have the power to control the way we navigate a space. Social structures are understood not with our senses, as physical structures are, but by our knowledge of relationships, perhaps even by fear. When we look at things in isolation, we see them differently. Once isolated, the smallest actions become much more significant, much more noticeable. We tune in, we become expectant, and anticipate the next move. Nothing goes unnoticed. Observing the observer. Observing the observer observe. Observing the observer observing. Observer observed. Observation of the observer. Observation of the observer observe. Observation of the observer observing. Observer observed by observer. Observer observed observing. Observer observed observing by observer. Observer observed observing by observer observing. Sometimes it is important for things to remain invisible, to remain unobserved. The work of a Foley artist would be unsuccessful if it were to be seen. The illusion would be shattered. George Monbiot said, "What greater power can there be than to operate namelessly?" The work process of the artist is something that often remains invisible. The studio remains invisible. Art is seen only in this white cube environment, cut off from reality. The outside world must not come in. Unshadowed, white, clean, artificial. Artworks untouched by time and its vicissitudes. An eternity of display. There is no time. One has to have died already to be there. Can this illusion of perfection be broken? Can the outside world enter the gallery space? Can imperfection infiltrate the flawless white space? Misinterpretation, mistranslation, error.
Is this a result of the discursive process by which a toddler group is totally different, to be limited, presented as a dictation mode on students, much of a touch of description to say leave it if it's loose around the site? Discuss this political sexy different rupture to consist of fire, the principle that allows individuals to be persuaded to direct a good group of teachers, hello, this is a group, as a result of its opposition to the in-grey, and its like avoidance to this flat is based on stereotypes. The last sick, but I did love you, Sissinghurst.
If the role of the gallery is to display artworks in such a non-space, then what is the function of the studio? A private place, an ivory tower. What happens then if the private studio space becomes public? If the work process becomes the subject of the art? Nothing essential happens in the absence of noise. Csikszentmihalyi, 1976. Sounds made visible in language, both spoken and written. Now I will do nothing but listen. I hear all sounds running together, combined, fused or following. Sounds of the city and sounds out of the city. Sounds of the day and night. Silence takes its identity as a stretch of time perforated by sound. Drones rotate. Two performers navigate the space. Sound, movement, duration, time. Time is a tool. Time is never passive, always active, always transforming, always exerting its power onto everything that passes its way. Nothing escapes the passage of time, unless time is unable to pass. To get from A to B, one must first travel halfway between A and B. To reach this point, one must travel halfway from A to the new point, and so on, and so on. Motion becomes impossible. Life becomes a series of durationless instants, unable to transition from one to the next.